Okay, I'm just going to start introducing what we're up to today and also Wellfound, and then to let people roll in before I properly introduce our guest speaker, Carmen Hudson, who we're so excited to have with us today. So this is one of our Ask a Recruiter live Q&As where we host a recruiter and you get to ask them your questions. Our topic today is Ghosted to Hire, Insider Tips on Breaking Through Recruiter Silence, which is, I think, such an important topic. And like I said, it's with Carmen Hudson. For anybody who has joined from outside of Wellfound or not a Wellfound user, I'll spend a little time just introducing Wellfound. Before I do that, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping and explain how this session is going to work. We're going to start with 5 survey intake questions to warm up. So these are all questions from you when you signed up for the call, just to set the tone. And, some of them are overlapping, so we kind of bunch those together. While that's happening, feel free to ask your questions in the chat. And you can indicate if you want me to read them out for you or if you want to ask out loud. And then after we're done with those initial questions, you can always use the hand raise feature in Zoom to actually indicate that you want to ask out loud. We love to hear your voices. It gives us all a break. And also, it's just like really nice to have that sense of community. And then lastly, I just want to say it's great to come together in a community like this. We really hope that everyone could please be respectful and thoughtful about their questions. Carmen has taken time out of their day to help us with this and offered their time. So just keep everything, cordial. And I should introduce myself. My name is Rachel. I'm part of the product support team here at Wellfound. You'll see a few other people with Wellfound backgrounds who are also from our team. We're on the other side of the talent@wellfound.com emails if you send us for any help. So we're real people who answer your questions. So just to introduce Wellfound a little bit, Wellfound is a jobs marketplace. It's been around for over 10 years. It used to be called AngelList Talent. And we help you get hired by cutting edge startups. I won't go on and on about Wellfound, but please check it out if you haven't yet already. We've made over 8 million matches. We have over 150,000 tech jobs in our system and over 10 million candidates. So it's a really great community, and there are some jobs on there that companies post only on Wellfound because they've been longtime users. So make sure to add it to your lists of places to check out and search for jobs. All right, now to the good stuff. I want to introduce our guest speaker, Carmen Hudson. Carmen is a veteran talent acquisition leader with over 20 years of experience in recruiting strategy and sourcing innovation. Currently serving as a board member for Career Crossroads or X-Roads Foundation and Youth Care Seattle. Carmen previously spent over 10 years as a consultant and trainer at Recruiting Toolbox, helping high-profile companies develop effective talent acquisition strategies. A self-described recruiting geek, which I love, by passion and strategist by expertise. She has held senior acquisition roles at Extra Hop, Yahoo, Starbucks, Microsoft, Amazon, and Capital One, where she specialized in revitalizing employer brands and building strategic sourcing programs. They founded a social recruiting technology company and recently published the Corporate Recruiter's Playbook, Strategies for Hiring Top Talent. They're a regular contributor to industry publications and award-winning speaker at events like Talent 42 and SourceCon. She brings valuable insider perspective to help candidates successfully navigate the recruiting process and stand out in job markets. Thank you so much for being with us, Carmen.
So excited to be here. It's that's a great capsule, I think, of what I've done. One of the things that I thought that I hadn't mentioned, but I guess you found it, is that I launched a startup myself some years ago. It was not very successful, but it really helped me understand this world of finding talent who will help you take your product and move it to the next level. So I'm excited to be here. And I'm an old timer. I talk to people at all kinds of companies. So throw whatever question you have at me. I'm ready to take it. And if I don't know, I will say that I don't know. So happy to do that as well.
Awesome. And that's all we ask is your candid answers to these questions to help our community. So the first question that we have is about recruiter ghosting. We've got 2 that are very similar here. Alexandra and Rachel both asked a question about what to do if recruiters write LinkedIn messages with interest, but then they disappear. So what happens when someone ghosts you, but they've reached out first?
So I will, if you don't mind, I'll talk a little bit about how this works. So there are three types of recruiting firms. The first is the corporate firm, and that is you want to work for a specific employer, and that employer actually reaches out to you and recruits, and there's a recruiter who works for that company who is actually part of the recruiting process. There are also what we call third-party recruiters, and third-party recruiters may or may not have an agreement with the company to recruit, and they only get paid once they find someone that the company agrees to hire. And they are legitimate. There are tons of these firms out there. Some of them are really big, some of them are one person. And most of them these days, I should have an agreement with the employer, although sometimes they don't, and so that gets a little wonky. But that they are a perfectly valid way to make your way inside of a company, but it's important to know the difference. And then lastly, this happens when you're a little bit more advanced in your career, when you're at the director, VP level and above. You will find a third-party recruiter, but they are actually what is called an executive search firm, and they are paid by the company to do this work. So in the first case, where it's a consulting firm or a firm that is actually working without a contract on behalf of the employer, and an executive search firm typically has a contract and is paid by the company whether or not a hire is made. They just have that job to do. So you may be approached by any one of these. There is no, you don't get to control that because it's really based on the company's internal budget. So they may contract with a third-party recruiter because they don't want to hire a full-time recruiter, or their full-time recruiters are too busy, or maybe even a full-time recruiter has put this particular rec or position in the hands of a third-party recruiter, or you may have someone who reaches out to you directly. It is important to understand at the beginning what the relationship is, and making sure that you keep a little bit, especially if you're reached out to by a third-party recruiter, it's important to keep track of dates because that can become important near the end of negotiating a package and understanding how you were brought into the company. And if you keep track of those dates, it might be helpful. So, that said, that may influence what is happening. So what happens in terms of a recruiter working on a particular position? They get the rec is approved, and typically they sit and they meet with the hiring managers and they understand a little bit more about what kind of person would do well in the role. And then they go out and they try to do what is called sourcing. And so they may source by advertising the position on their own corporate website as well as any external websites, and or posting the position to LinkedIn, for example, is an example of that. And they may go out and actually search LinkedIn and find a number of people who may be appropriate for the position, and they will send out an email, and they may or may not select you as a candidate to move forward. So you may say, yes, I'm very interested. Or you may write back and talk about your skill set and how you may really be appropriate for the role, but you don't hear back from the recruiter. And that's only because they found what it is that they're looking for. Either they had an applicant that came through, or because, you know what, they got 10 responses really quickly, and of those 10, 5 are interested. That's enough for them to move forward with the candidates. It's likely not anything that you are doing. It is likely the recruiter made a big effort. They probably made a bigger effort than they needed to make. And they are, I think it's important to note that the recruiters are most of the time judged on how quickly they fill the role. They're not judged on how well they treat candidates. So that's why you may feel that you are not being treated well. It's not something that recruiters intentionally do, but it is something that happens. And so if they have in whatever length of time they've gathered the number of candidates that they think they need to fill this position, that they will have to interview in order to fill this position, and you are on the outside of that, it's not something that they are looking at your profile and saying specifically, I don't want to engage with that person. But what I would recommend that you do, if you receive that LinkedIn message, I would immediately go to that employer's career site, find that position, and I would apply for that position as well. That's just gonna double your chances of being selected. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer it any better than that. I don't think it's an intentional ghosting. I do think that they do ghost you, but I don't think it's intentional with you in mind. It is
Right.
whether or not they are able to fill their positions quickly. Does
That
that help?
I think it's definitely helpful. I guess one takeaway listening to you talk about it is that maybe responding quickly could actually help, when,
Responding quickly definitely helps.
yeah.
I'd love to hear, you wouldn't mind throwing it into the chat. What do you think is the average number of candidates that a recruiter will see for a position?
Oh, yeah. Let's see what people, oh, five. We got five
Five.
from Will.
See five from Will. Anybody else want to take a guess? 30.
1,000.
Someone says 1,000.
I feel like we're playing
So
Price is Right and we're all
I
hedging.
know, but guess what? Ashish is closer to right than 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can sometimes be depending on the popularity of the company, of course, and the size of the company and how well known the company is. Most recs these days are actually getting more applicants.
Mhm.
200 plus is not uncommon. If you are applying at a Microsoft or an Amazon, we would easily get 1,500 plus for um, tech positions. So it really does matter that you are part of a large group, not a smaller group. If you're talking about an unknown startup with a posting that appears somewhere that's not popular, you may be closer to the 100 or 50 number. But most days, most recs these days get at least, two or 300 applicants. Now, I will say of those two or 300 as a recruiter, my guess is two-thirds of them are nowhere near relevant. But guess what? That still means that I have work to do in order to
Of
figure
course.
out, you know, the right candidates.
Definitely. And I wonder, I think our next question, I might skip one question and come back to this because I think that this question's kind of related to that. I wonder if connecting with recruiters, like having a recruiter ghost you and reaching out to you because you were somewhat qualified could be an opportunity maybe to connect with the recruiter. Maybe we can add that on to some tips you have
Yeah,
for answering Pavan's question, which is how to effectively network with recruiters. Um, and maybe we'll ask Dixiana's question after.
I think any opportunity that you have to connect with a recruiter, so even if they reach out to you, ask you about a position and then ghost you, connect with them. Because if they are accepting connections, because sometimes recruiters do and sometimes they don't. There's no law, there's no rule, there's no corporate ruling about whether or not a recruiter has to connect with anyone. So uh, I, for one, love to connect with anyone that I reach out to or reaches out to me. And if it looks like a reasonable connection, I'll make that connection. I don't share my connections because I think that's a pretty valuable network that I've built. And so you won't be able to go through and find other people based on my list. However, I do like to make sure that I stay in touch with people. And the question from Dixiana, how do I find recruiters that are recruiting for my type of roles? That's a little bit tougher. And the reason is because recruiters' jobs are often changing. So I may support this one group, and next quarter, if I find myself supporting another group, I may go back to that group. I may be a tech recruiter. I may be a finance recruiter next quarter. So it's a really tough to do that in some cases. Um, I would connect with any recruiter with whom you've had any contact. And if you have a recruiter who can help refer you, what I would do is make sure that I am giving that recruiter as much information so that they can be helpful to me as possible. I got an outreach today and I get 3 or 4 of these a month. Hey, I saw your profile. You look like a fantastic recruiter, and I would love to do work and blah, blah, blah. And that was the end of the message. Well, I just don't have the time or, quite frankly, the inclination to help that person figure out what job I should be referring them for. So if you do that work for me and I know the answer, I'm happy to refer you to the right recruiter in my company. If you don't do that work, I'm not going to do much more work on your behalf. Does that make sense? Can be honest about that. That's one that happens quite a bit. Um, in terms of networking with recruiters, I, I will tell you that, well, depending on the job that I had. So when I was a campus recruiter, I had all the time in the world for networking, right? If you came from one of the campuses that I was interested in, or even if you were just a student, my job was really built around networking with you. As a recruiter within industry, I didn't have a lot of time for networking, or every once in a while, I might structure and set up a networking event. And usually, when I did that, I reached out to people, probably shared it on LinkedIn, those kinds of things. But I wasn't available for a lot of networking. Recruiting is one of those jobs that is I love it, but it doesn't allow a lot of time to do all the things that we'd like to do. I actually can see that actually improving with AI taking on a lot of the work, the busy work that we had to do around entering people into a system and typing in results and those kinds of things. A lot of that work is going away. So maybe we will be able to do a little bit more of the networking and outreach that I think is useful to learning our markets. But quite frankly, we didn't stay within a particular market for very long. Often if I succeeded in hiring out a team, I would be moved on to hire out for a different team. And so all of that networking would have lost its value as I moved on to another group.
Mhm. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Um, that's great. I'm gonna pop back to the questions we skipped over, which I accidentally went the wrong way. And take a little moment to talk about cover letters and
Oh yeah.
applications. So do recruiters actually read cover letters? And if so, what are some tips to make it impactful? And then we, have a question about AI generated cover letters. Like, do employers like that? Do they not like it? I have a thought. I have a hunch on what the answer might be, but yeah, what are your advice? What is your
It's
advice?
okay. So I'm I love cover letters, but I don't like what I don't want to do is read a cover letter that you've written and forgotten about. So if you've got a cover letter that actually tells me in 3 paragraphs why you are perfect for this role, what stands out in your experience that makes you a great candidate for this role. That's all I want to know. There's nothing else you can tell me in a cover letter that's going to be of interest to me. So give me 1 or 2 paragraphs, at most 3. They must be short, and they must tell me why you stand out for this particular role. I stand out for this particular role because I know X about this company, and I'm
Mm,
excited to work for this particular company in this particular role because I've done XYZ. That's going to actually be something that I want to read. If you write something that is fluffy, that is full of crap that you've written to everyone, I don't want to read it and it wastes my time. And most recruiters, I won't say most, I'll say many recruiters don't read them at all. But
mm.
if you've taken the time to read them, to write them, I want to read it. And if you've written some crap, that's actually going to be a ding against you. If you've written something that makes you stand out, that's actually going to get my attention. So
Great to know.
so yeah, so if you're going to be lazy, don't do it. If you're going to actually really hone in on that particular company and that particular role, then I want to read it.
Like, make your case.
Make your case,
Way.
but in a
Yeah.
sentence, not in paragraphs after paragraphs.
Well, I think that's one big takeaway is just how much reading recruiters have to do and how many messages they get. So I
That's
think
it.
keeping that in mind really helps. And then as far as AI generated, if they
Don't
remove,
give me that crap. I don't want it. It will read beautiful, but it won't be anything that's of interest to me.
got it. Great.
I'm being honest, sorry.
No, I think it's great. It's good to hear the truth. That's what's going to help, I think. We're
Yeah.
getting lots of questions in the chat.
All right.
And I'm really excited about that. Maybe I'll take a quick break to read one of them,
Yeah.
since we've got our audience here.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'll switch back and forth kind of because these are audience questions too. They're
Okay.
just from before. So Simon asks a thoughtful question here. From your perspective, what's one thing candidates often overlook in the hiring process that could make the difference between getting ghosted and getting hired, especially in such a competitive startup environment?
Do you mind if I share my screen?
Oh yeah, you can do that.
I'm gonna do that. So, all right. So
I think I
wait.
have to stop sharing and then you can share.
Oh, okay. All right.
I
So
think you should be able to now.
I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share.
Thanks for the question, Simon.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna share. I've got a bunch of stuff here. Um, Follow Amy Miller on LinkedIn. She answers all of these questions all the time. She's a recruiter at Amazon. She's known as the recruiter in yoga pants, and she just tells the truth. She's a former Microsoft recruiter. She doesn't even know that I'm referring you to her. But if you follow her, she does YouTube videos, and she's really great about answering questions. And the rest of this, you can read through that. But I'm going to tell you what hiring managers want to know. And this is something that I have trained many, many interviewers, recruiters, and hiring managers on. And this is what they want to know, even if they don't know they want to know this. They want to know what skills you have, right? Are you great at Excel? Are you great at building prompts? Whatever your skills are, that's important. And we tend to focus there, but I think the even more important piece of this is what we call your behaviors or competencies. That's what hiring managers really want to know, even if they don't know that they want to know this. They want to know how you do your work and whether or not that matches their environment. So you may do your work with your head down and submitting your work, and it's great, it's perfect, except in the environment that you're in, this is a let's talk it out. Let's actually have a meeting. Let's actually duke out who has the best idea. And so if you are not appearing in that way, you're not being successful in that environment. So every company has its own set of behaviors. I worked for 10 years at Recruiting Toolbox, and the only thing we do is go in and first say, how do you get work done here? What behaviors are most successful in your organization? And most organizations had an overall list. If you go to corporate websites, sometimes you'll likely find that. And then there are lists that exist within teams. So a company may expect you to share your work broadly, and within the team, you're expected even to do even more, right? You're expected to partner with someone, you're expected to show up at a weekly team meeting and share what you've done. Whatever those behaviors are, it's your job to investigate and understand what those are in order to be more successful than the other candidates. So having that conversation with the recruiter, understanding that from the hiring manager and any interviewer that you work with will give you an edge. People walk in with all the skills, but it's their behaviors that actually get them the job. And they're going to want to understand not only how you might behave, but how you have behaved in the past. So when you're telling stories about what happened on your prior job, think through that. I love to, quite frankly, trip up candidates by asking them about a project they worked on that didn't go so well, and people tell me all kinds of things. Think that through in advance. How are you going to show up when you talk about this? I don't want you to lie, but I do want you to think about what you share, how you share it, and how you sort of put a ring around your behaviors and how you learn from that uh, experience. So that's what is at the root of this. So the achievements. So what have you done, and what have you done well? And I can't tell you the number of candidates who have one story to tell and they have no more. Have five, have seven, write them down, think about them. Think about what have you achieved and what have you done well. And also what would you like to learn? What did you learn? What didn't you do so well? And what did you learn from that? Those kinds of stories will get you a lot further. And then lastly, your motivation. What are your career goals? short term and long term. I can't tell you the number of people who just say, I want to get the job. Well, that turns me off. If I'm a hiring manager, I want to know that you want to join my whatever team and that you want to do well and that you may want to take this to some other kind of career. I want to know that as well. That's great. That actually gets me excited about you as a candidate. You tell me, I just want to get a job. I'm not going to be so excited about you. So those are the four things that I really want you to walk in and be able um, to share. And then the last piece here is just thinking through the position. So you're applying for a position. You've got at minimum 100 people that you're competing against. This is something that I actually share with recruiters and sourcers, but I'm sharing this with you. Um, I like you to take the job description, which, by the way, may be 100% accurate or it may be 50% accurate. There is no predicting. And no one in the world wants this as their job. Nobody wants to write job descriptions because it's the most boring work ever. Although some companies are probably pulling ahead by using AI to write them. Even so, they're not looked at very closely, and often they're just slightly off, sometimes very wrong. In this case, I have a manager of finance position that I've diagrammed out. I use this to help recruiters think about their sourcing. You could use this to help think about the job. So in this case, the ad here, I think it's from ESPN, says they want someone who's a manager of finance who knows ad sales finance. And breaking that down from the job description and or sort of what I know about ad sales, they want analytics, they want quarterly sales expectation, and they want P&L, that kind of information. They want someone who's great at forecasting and budgeting, someone who's great at strategic planning, and someone who's great at business intelligence. And, even pushing that out even further, that they know how to use business objects or MicroStrategy or Tableau or some other tool like that. So this is great. It looks like a really big job. And if I were to talk to the hiring manager, my guess is the hiring manager would say, oh, we put strategic planning in there, but we didn't mean it, right? We don't really need that. But they put it all in the job description. It's there just in case it's there. What your job is as the candidate is to understand not only from the recruiter, but from the hiring manager. I wouldn't necessarily ask this of the team. I'll tell you why. But I would ask the hiring manager, I've thought about everything that I saw in the job ad, so I just want to confirm, are you looking for someone who's able to do financing and forecasting and strategic planning? And the hiring manager might say, oh, yeah, we had strategic planning, but that's down the road, or that's not something that's highly important. And that gives you a little bit more interesting. I wouldn't necessarily ask everyone who's interviewing me because they all have a different opinion. And the guy who's over forecasting and budget said this is the entire job. And the guy who's working on ad sales and finance says, hey, this is the real job. So they are going to all have different opinions, but your recruiter and your hiring manager should have closer ideas. Maybe this is everything exactly that they want, but it's good for you to double check. And it really does. It serves as a great set of questions that you can ask the team. And it serves as a really great way to think about the position that you're moving into. So I'll share this deck with you. I've got a tech example, but those kinds of things. So that's all that I had to share with you. The rest of it you can check out on your own. All right, I'm going to stop
Well,
sharing.
and Carmen shared with me before the call that we could share those slides with you later.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we're gonna share the whole recording of the session too and a few other resources. So that's something to look forward to that you'll be able to get a closer look at too. Thanks so much, Carmen. That was really helpful. Maybe I'll share back the prepared questions if that's okay.
Okay.
Wait, I have lost my screen. 1 second.
Sorry, I didn't mean to,
Oh
mess
no,
things up.
no, that was great. Thank you. No, I just lost, I've got two monitors and all that
All
business.
the stuff, all the
Second.
things happening.
Yeah, everybody here I'm sure knows what I'm talking about. Here we go. But that was great. And I had one quick question just about
Sure.
what you were talking about, as far as, kind of making your case to recruiters about that job specific, your behaviors with the job. Like what would be, you were talking about like sort of lists of things, but were you meaning like looking up the core values for the company? Um,
100%. 100%.
Great.
Take
Yeah,
a look
that's
at
what I
the
thought.
core values. So I use Amazon as an example because I was there when they started to create those, and hopefully, like I hope, like even a little tiny little bit of my language is still left in there. I haven't looked recently, and they've expanded them since then. I know that much, and it really does capture what they are looking for when they interview people.
That's so
That
helpful.
and they are very serious about that, and any evaluation will include some piece of that. So and if a company has put that out there, it's definitely worth taking a walk through and figuring that out. And as you are even communicating, right, um in that letter, you may want to say, hey, and I stand out in terms of X, Y, or Z, right?
Right.
And maybe a quick example. But it really does tell you a little bit more about the company and helps you make a decision about whether or not that's a place where you think you'd be comfortable.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Also thinking about is this a good fit for me?
100%. 100.
Um, I'd love to read Bess's question. I love this question. So Bess asks, can you walk us through how you actually evaluate a candidate when when they email you cold? Um,
So I'm a recruiter and I just get an email and it's a candidate and they are asking for a job. Well, first of all, I want to know first you've got to be specific because if it's not specific, if it's not related to a position that I'm working on, I'm not going to spend 10 seconds there because I just don't have that time. And if it's specific and it's not something that I'm working on, and I know who I can direct it to, I will direct it to them immediately. If it's specific and it is related to a position that I'm working on, I'm going to read it. And I'm going to figure out in the first couple of sentences, is this likely going to be a good fit for my role? I may open the resume first, quite frankly, because that's going to tell me. And then I am going to decide whether or not I put the person as part of my process. Do I respond and say thanks but no, or do I add them to the database? So if you are sending a cold email to me, you also want to make sure that you have input yourself into the system because I'll check to see that you're there. And if you're there, I'm going to go, okay, great. If I think, oh, this person's great, but they're not actually great for my current role, maybe they're a little junior, maybe they're too senior, whatever that might be, I will be glad to have access to them. And I might even remember to access them the next time I have an open position. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It
But
sounds,
it's random.
yeah. Yeah.
It is as random as it sounds.
Well, it sounds important too that you focus your energy on roles that you really feel like fit your experience. Like
Yeah.
that is, yeah, kind of the big takeaway as far as like what might be helpful to
Yeah,
candidates to
exactly.
focus their
Don't
energy.
make me do any work because I don't have time to do that work.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I wish I did, right? And there were times when, I was a little bit slower, but most recruiters are carrying, anywhere from 10 to 30 positions. And that's actually an improvement over the years.
Right. And then as far as what role does personal branding play in your first impression of a candidate? So like that person cold emails you, you're going to look at their LinkedIn, right? You're going to see what they have there and what they've done, or you're going to look strictly at their resume.
I'm going to be, quite frankly, as I'm assessing candidates to put through a profile, I'm looking primarily at their their past experience.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I get like when you're showing up for an interview, all that is important, but at the sourcing stage, I am really not interested. And for the longest time, there was a huge debate on whether or not candidates should even include a photo in LinkedIn, and there are many opinions about this. I think it's fine, but it's not something I'm going to pay attention to.
Got it. Got it. Um, okay, we've got some other questions in the chat. I'm gonna switch to one just to, you know, shake things up a little bit and make sure we get to them all. So James asked a question. I'm a former educator. Yeah, I'm a former educator, teacher, and then high school principal for 25 years. Wow, that's amazing. Worked in the US and then internationally. All of these quote unquote experts keep saying we have so many transferable skills that employers want, but my past 18 months is showing the opposite. I have come to the conclusion that after 25 years as an educator, I really am only qualified to be an educator. Any insights?
Yeah. So congratulations on doing that for 25 years.
Amazing.
Both of my younger sisters are teachers, so I just have a high respect for that profession. The answer to your question is actually yes, you do have transferable skills. The other side of that is helping recruiters and hiring managers see that may be difficult. That's the challenge. And making that sort of a switch requires a little bit of patience. It requires your actually writing your resume and writing about your experience in a way that I can see the skills that you have and how it's relevant. And also understanding that there are plenty of people who may have that direct experience that hiring managers are looking at. And so that's where you're coming up against the competition. I don't agree that you don't have those skills. What is interesting is that you are in competition with people who have done that direct work. And so you're going to have to help me see it as a hiring manager. You're going to have to help me see the skills that you're bringing to the table. And it can't be, uh, it's got to be fairly concrete examples. Otherwise, I feel as a recruiter or even as a hiring manager that I'm excluding great candidates who have had this experience in favor of candidates who may not have had as much experience. So that's the hurdle that you have to get over. You can do it. It can be done. Um, my husband went from sales to HR, CHRO, but it was a years long transition. It took some time.
Also, if I can add something, James, if you, I don't, it doesn't indicate what kind of roles you're looking for, but trying to approach companies that are working in the ed tech space might
Yep,
make sense. Like
1000%.
I got into tech because I'm an artist, and the first company I worked for was for artist portfolios, and so that
Mhm.
experience in the field in which they are approaching that demographic might be really valuable to a team like that. We're working with a company called Magic School right now that is like really rethinking online education. And I believe their CEO, or maybe she's head of operations. I can't quite remember, but she was a former principal. So somewhere like that might be really might be somewhere to look. I know they're hiring, so maybe take a look. I don't know if that's helpful, but thought I'd add it.
Great. It's a great question. Oh, you're on mute somehow.
I don't know how that happened. It's all good. Okay, I'll go back to one of our prepared questions. We already did connect with recruiters, and our last prepared question is this one. And it's about the future of hiring. I can't read it right now. Here we go. Is traditional hiring broken? This is a question from Fitum. I'm asking this question because of a lot of big companies complaining about the people they hire and the need to let them go and repeat the process again. So, do you think that AI or technology itself will help companies to change the process of hiring? So, what's the current state of hiring? How are things changing?
That's a really great question. And I will tell you this. I've been in this business a long time. I started in this business because I was excited by the internet. And when I entered this profession, chances were 50% that you'd hired the right person, and 50% that the person would be gone within 2 years. And guess what the numbers are currently? About 50%. So um, it's really tough because, and I'll tell you why, and people, um, I think that AI will help us at least hone in on specific skills that will be helpful to us. It's the other side. It's whether or not we have the right person in the right environment who responds in the way that we expect them to, who has the competencies that we need them to have in order to excel in the current environment. That environment changes all the time. The types of so I have taken Myers-Briggs several times, and every time I take it, I fall somewhere right in the middle of extroverted and introverted. So there are days when I show up as my introverted self, and I'm quite capable of doing online events like this. And there are days when that's the very last thing that I want to do or will do well. So that is the piece that makes this feel broken. and makes it risky every single time. It is the characteristics that you need inside of an organization, which can always change, and the characteristics that the candidates bring to the organization, which can always change. All kinds of personal or professional things might happen, right? A candidate who or an employee who's great at one thing takes a class and suddenly they're great at something else as well. It's just can't it can't be bottled. So, is traditional hiring broken? Yes, because we are always doing this. We're missing and matching in terms of the people that we're bringing in, but we are doing our very best to figure out, does this person match? And we take a guess, we take a risk, we say yes, and that person may come in, they may do great and stay within our company for years. And there is also the very much the chance that the person just flames out and is no longer there within a year. So um, I would love to see that work itself out in a better way. I think we'll get much better at matching skills and the things that we're able to do with jobs themselves. But I don't know that we will become so much better at identifying what we need as a company in terms of those behaviors and what the candidate brings. That's just my thoughts about it.
No, that's great. And it's an answer we haven't heard before. We've had similar questions like this in the
Mhm.
past, but that was a unique answer about, sometimes people don't even know what they're looking for as part of the problem. And
They
then
they
they
really,
figure it
and
out
it
as
may
they go.
change, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a job and suddenly, guess what? We have a new customer, we have a new process, and the person in the role is just a little flabbergasted. And sometimes they step up to it, and sometimes they don't.
Definitely. Okay, well, now we have pure live questions and we've got some in the chat, so I'm really
Okay.
excited to engage some people. I'm going to call on some people to speak. If you don't want to speak, that's totally fine. So the first question, or like the next question I have is from, oh no, that's a comment. One second. Yeah, Hussein asks a really simple question. You want to ask it out loud, Hussein?
Yeah, sure. So, I asked two questions, but I'm going to ask the second one because that's a bit more interesting to me right now. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really helpful. The second question that I wanted to ask was, if a candidate gets rejected for a role at a company, but they continue to apply for that same role or another role within the same company, is that considered determination or annoyance?
So it's interesting. So there are a couple of AI tools that I think at a certain point, once they're rolled out more widely, will help with this. It can be a great thing if you're doing it strategically. Don't apply for every single role. It will actually, hurt you if you do that. And I have examples that I can share from my past where I've had a candidate that just applied to every single role until eventually we locked them out of the system. So not a good thing, but continuing to take a look specifically at the positions, figure out where they are, make some friends within the company. One of the things that I share in the document is that you have got to, and I yesterday I was on a very similar call. There was a group of university graduates, and I said, how many of you have gone out and had coffee, lunch, went to the offices of, or networked with any person live in the last 3 months? And the answer was zero, absolutely zero. You can't do that. You can't, especially if you want to break into a new role or you want to break into a specific company. You've got to go out, meet people, find them, take them to lunch, and have a 10-minute call, whatever that might be. Network with each other, and whatever it might be, that will just continue to get your juices flowing, and you'll get a little bit more knowledge about what's happening in the market. Staying at home and waiting for someone to call you is the worst way to not find a job. But does it help to apply? Yes. Give it 3 months, give it 6 months, or see if you can, if you've had a conversation with a recruiter, make sure that they are thinking about you by sending an email about whatever, and saying, hey, I noticed that you had another one of these roles open. I would love to know when it might be appropriate for me to apply. Those kinds of things. It's not that I don't want to remember you, but the minute you put yourself in front of me, I go, oh yeah, I talked to Hussein last time. He wasn't great for that role, but he might be great for a role that's opening on another team in a couple of months from now. And I would be happy to tell you that. I will tell you, did not get many emails like that at all. And that's an easy one to respond to, right? You're not making me guess about who you are. You know what type of position. So I can say to you, you know what? I don't have something that is appropriate for you now, but I may down the road. Make sure you get in touch with me in 6 months. Those kinds of things. Yes. But applying for every single role, please don't do that.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome question and answer. Okay, I'm gonna try to go through these quickly. So Daniel has a question. Do you want to ask it out loud, Daniel? If you're still here.
I mean, yeah, so you were just speaking about networking, right?
Yes.
So let's say, what would you do if you were starting from like complete zero, right? How would you start the networking process?
I would start first by practicing. So I get together with a friend and I'd say, let's have a networking meeting. And they're going to say, that's weird. And I'm like, yep, it is. And let's have it anyway. And just figure out 3 questions, right? What are you working on now? Why is that interesting to you? What do you see coming down the pike in the future? Whatever those 3 questions are. And you will start having that kind of a dialogue. And from there, I would branch out beyond my scope of friends. I might look at a company that I'm interested in, and I'd find someone in my same position, and I might reach out to them and say, hey, looks like you're a year into working at X, Y, and Z. Would you mind having coffee with me? Or if I bring coffee by, I'd love to know a little bit more about working at that. And it sounds really scary. And you think that people will say no. I can't tell you the number of people who say yes. And I will tell you that it works. It works phenomenally because you know someone at that company. The next time a role becomes open, you can go back and say, hey, thanks for meeting with me. I saw this role was open. Would you mind referring me? Really important to get other people to refer you because employee referrals are one of the top ways that as a recruiter, I find candidates. I'm always going to look at and respond to an employee referral. Employee referrals represent about 1/3 of all hires made at companies. So your referral might be somebody that you ride the bus with, but maybe they they work at a company that you're interested in. And they work in a completely different department. But you say, hey, I noticed they had an open role in the area that I'm interested in. Would you mind referring me? What's your email? I'll send you my information. And for them, usually in many companies, especially tech companies, that represents potential income. That represents, I might get 5,000, 10,000. I might get a free lunch for a year, whatever it is that their company offers for referrals. That person, since they have referred you, is actually in line to get that reward if you are indeed hired. And so that is a big part of how we find candidates. And I'm much more interested in someone who works alongside me referring someone because that person has a little bit more insight into how this person acts and really especially interested if they are from the same work area because they might have a little bit more experience with how this person works. So definitely make sure that you're getting referred. Reach back to people that you have worked with in the past and say, hey, we worked together at X, Y, and Z. Would you mind having lunch with me? Or I'm going to grab coffee and I'm going to be near there. I'd love to chat with you about what's going on. Having those kinds of relationships will definitely increase your ability to be hired into whatever company that you're interested in.
Yeah, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the advice.
It's a little bit scary, I get it, but it is also necessary.
Yeah, wonderful advice. Thank you, Carmen. Alexandra has a question about career breaks. Do you want to ask it out loud? for us? Let's see.
Yes, I wanted to ask if a person has a career break. Does it mean that all the doors are closed for such a person?
No, not at all. And these days, it is. I think we understand life a little bit better. Sometimes we take a break because we just are burned out and we need a break. Sometimes we take a break to have children. Sometimes we take a break to take care of an elderly parent. There's so many different reasons. So I would just capture, you know, uh, 2024 to 2025. I took a career break and just put that on the resume. And for the most part. There may be some old school managers out there who will have some questions, but quite frankly, if I saw that on your resume and you took an intentional break, I'm not even going to ask you about it because I don't want to get into illegal questions and asking about pregnancies or anything like that. I'm going to say she took a break and move forward.
Awesome. Thanks for the answer. And Simon had another question about, you know, matching actual roles. I'll let him ask it if he wants to ask it out loud.
First of all, hi, thank you, everybody. Very great session. Carmen, thank you for taking the time, and Rachel and Wellfound to organizing this because it's very important, especially in times like this. But Carmen, I had two questions, but I feel like you sort of like answered a little bit here and there. I know the market is tough right now, and a lot of people are looking for jobs, and there's a lot of, you know, shenanigans that's going around, unfortunately, something that we cannot control. But for example, I'm in the sales industry. I've been doing sales since I was a baby, you know. So I wanted to know some job descriptions that I've been applying to, like BDMs, BDRs. You know, I even like had to sort of change my title, not, you know, to hurt my ego in a sense, because, you know, I keep moving on. I'm not trying to make it emotional, more like, okay, you failed, you keep moving, you keep thriving, you keep, you know, pushing yourself. I guess it's the mentality, but I see a lot of like BDRs positions that the requirements are 6 to 1 year of experience, and I have, for example, 5, 6, 7 years experience. Let's say I check all the boxes, right? I agree already to the salary range that they're saying, right? I have to lower myself a little bit in order just to get into the door, and from there I can grow to AE, you know, account manager or whatever. How come like candidates that have that 6 months experience are sort of like getting selected over me or anybody else who can actually off the bat get into the company, knows all the tools, knows all the, you know, the sales, because sales is broad, right? Sales is same thing in Europe,
Right.
in America. It's the same concept. It's just what you're selling to, which company you're selling to, or the product. So
Gotcha.
wouldn't it make sense to hire someone who's already sort of knows all the rules, just needs to learn the product, which sort of saves the company, I guess, money, you know? So why does
How
this
do you
happen?
know? How do
It
you know who's
bothers
being
me.
selected?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure. So I have a personal experience. I've been referred to a company by a friend. He referred me and his friend, which had 4 months of experience in BDR. I literally applied through a referral, which has a higher chance, obviously, for you to qualify, which you just mentioned. And I found out within 3.5 weeks, he got hired. And we literally, like, we didn't talk to each other, but we literally got to the third interview. And it was like between 5 to 6 candidates, and they were only hiring like 1 or 2 people for that position. So one of the people who got hired was one with the 4 months experience. And then afterwards I had a conversation with him, like, what did you do? So we like bounced each other off, like the interview process. And I'm not going to say 100% because there's no such thing, but maybe 85 to 90%, we literally hit one-on-one what we said, what we thought, how we did. But I have more experience, which kind of demoralized me. I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
It may have been, I will tell you in that case, it probably had less to do with the length of your experience. And that's probably a case where it became a matter of your behaviors versus his behaviors, and they heard something they liked a little bit better, a little bit more in their behaviors. So that's usually what it comes down to. I will tell you, I've been in many debrief meetings, which is what we call the meetings that happen after we've interviewed and we talk about candidates. And I very rarely do I hear this person has 2 years more experience than that person. We don't, at that point, we've probably determined that this person can do the job and that person can do the job. It's really about those matters of, will they fit in this environment? That's usually it.
Okay.
That, you know, I don't know what happened in your specific case, but I will tell you that's the difference. So spending that time to understand that a little bit more, whether that's from
Okay.
the company website or the recruiter or even the hiring manager, is going to probably benefit you a little bit more. But it sounds like you were close. It sounds very much like you were close. It was just something they heard that he said that sounds like he would fit a little bit better in the environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I can't tell you the number of times that really it's come down to that, especially, you know, if you've got, you know, some super performers in the role, it's just a matter of this person said this thing and that really impressed me, right? Or this person looks like he has had a little bit more experience working with clients that look like X, Y, and Z. Those kinds of things become a lot more, that's what's typically discussed, not whether or not this person, and I will tell you, even at that phase, not even compensation is actually discussed. It really is the decision to understand the best candidate. And then after that, we determine compensation and start to go into those negotiations.
Yeah, I guess it's more of a character cannot be taught, skills can.
Yeah.
You know, so you sort of, okay, that makes sense.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So interesting to hear about, and definitely sounded positive, Simon, that you got to the third round. Like,
I will tell you,
I
that's
hope that keeps you going.
yeah.
We have just 3 minutes left.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know it just goes by so quickly with the questions. I think instead of rushing a question, I maybe just point us to some resources. So I'm going to share. First of all, we have a survey that I would love for you to answer if you can. This is a pretty new program. We've run 6 of them in the spring, and it's been going really well, but I would love your feedback on how to improve them. And also there's a way to sign up for future webinars. So you'll just be added you won't be automatically added to the calls, but you'll be sent the invites and you get to choose if you want to join them. So if you want to stay in touch, that's one way. And then also today, we just launched a Discord channel because every one of these, we've had people have questions still left unanswered. So if you want to join the Discord community, if you use that tool, I can jump into the chat after and maybe answer some of the questions that have not been answered, or at least try my best to point you to resources. And with that, we're also going to send you a video of this recording. Carmen, if you're up for sharing those slides, I'll share that with them too. And I have a series of articles that are from our Ask a Recruiter series that might help answer some of the questions that have been left unanswered because we can't answer all of them. I'm so sorry. But I want to thank Carmen for being here. This has been such a wonderful and generative conversation. Your expertise is really phenomenal, and I really appreciate you taking the time to help us out with everything today, Carmen.
Absolutely. And good luck to everyone. Please link in with me. I am happy to always, as much as I can, answer questions and point you in the right direction if you tell me where you want to be pointed.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining and asking such thoughtful questions too.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.
Much obliged.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.